guys. I believe Annie suggested that for my next hat, I should wear pigtails. So, here I am. Our book today is called Mr. Putter and Tabby Take the Train. Mr. Putter and Tabby take the train. And the three chapters are an idea, another idea, and taking the train. An idea. One day, Mr. Putter and his fine cat, Tabby, were cooking some oatmeal when Mrs. Teaberry called. Mrs. Teaberry was Mr. Putter's friend and neighbor. "I have an idea," she told Mr. Putter. As she spoke, her good dog Zeke wagged at Tabby through the window. Tabby and Zeke were friends and neighbors, too. Tabby and Zeke are a dog and cat, I believe. Here's Tabby, and that's Zeke. That's Mrs. Teaberry. Mr. Putter was not sure he wanted to hear Mrs. Teaberry's idea. Sometimes her ideas were odd, and involved running fast, or wearing feathers, or having purple toes. Wearing feathers, he's running fast, and they're having purple toes, because sometimes people, I think back then, people climbed into ladders like that, and then they smushed the grapes or something with their feet. But Mr. Putter always had good manners, so he asked, "What is your idea, Mrs. Teaberry?" Though he really did not want to know. "I think we should take a train," said Mrs. Teaberry. A train, thought Mr. Putter. Mr. Putter loved trains. When he was a boy, he rode them all the time. He loved the big windows and smooth seats and traveling backwards. But he hadn't been on a train in years. "I haven't been on a train in years," he told Mrs. Teaberry. "Exactly," said Mrs. Teaberry. "Let's go tomorrow. We'll go north for 2 hours and then turn around and come back." Mr. Putter looked at Tabby, who was still waiting for her oatmeal. "Can we bring Tabby and Zeke?" Mr. Putter asked Mrs. Teaberry. "Of course," she said. "You're sure pets are allowed?" he asked. "Certainly, and they can sit with us on the train?" asked Mr. Putter. Mr. Putter asked. "Of course they can," said Mrs. Teaberry. "You're sure?" said Mr. Putter. "I'm sure," said Mrs. Teaberry. "Positive?" asked Mr. Putter. "Positive," said Mrs. Teaberry. "Pets," she declared, "can go on trains." For 2. Another idea. "I'm sorry," said the ticket woman the next day. "Pets can't go on trains." "What?" said Mrs. Teaberry. Zeke was standing beside her, wearing his traveling jacket and had lots of pockets for bones and balls and little doggy lollipops. No. Oh, Mr. Putter and Tabby stood beside Zeke. They didn't have any traveling jackets, just a nice blue blanket for naps. Mr. Putter looked at Mrs. Teaberry. You said positive, he told her. Well, the last time I took a train, pets were allowed, said Mrs. Teaberry. When was that? Asked Mr. Putter. 1938, said Mrs. Teaberry. 1938 is a long time back. Mr. Putter had to smile. Let's just go home, he said. We'll have some tea. We can't go home, said Mrs. Teaberry. We've brought cards and games and binoculars and banana crunchies. And Zeke's jacket is all filled up. Did you say banana crunchies? Asked Mr. Putter. Mrs. Teaberry nodded. Like the kind we have on the 4th of July? Asked Mr. Putter. Mrs. Teaberry nodded again. Suddenly, Mr. Putter couldn't imagine anything nicer than being on a train with Tabby and Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke, eating banana crunchies. It would be the best train ride of his life. We're not getting any younger, said Mr. Putter, and told Mr. Teaberry. I have another idea. Taking the train. Mr. Putter and Mrs. Teaberry went home. An hour later, they went back to the station and bought their tickets. Mr. Putter looked a little different this time. This time he had a very lumpy pack on his back. It was full of little tiny doggy lollipops. It was full of little holes, and sometimes tiny doggy lollipops fell out. Mr. Putter just stuck the lollipops back in and patted the pack on his head. I think that Zeke is in there. Mrs. Teaberry looked a little different too. She was bearing a big smock with very full pockets of cards and games and banana crunchies, and she carried a picnic basket that purred, but no one could hear it except Mrs. Teaberry. I think Tabby is in there. See? The two old friends got in the train and found seats by a big window. The train began to roll. Chug, chug, chug. Mr. Putter was so happy he thought he would burst. And for the next 4 hours, he and Mrs. Teaberry had the train ride of their lives. Of course, the backpack decided to crawl under the seat and snore, and the picnic basket kept batting at the window shade. Mr. Putter and Mrs. Teaberry just petted them fondly and fed them banana crunchies the whole way. And that's the end of our book. Okay, Annie, I hope you enjoyed these pigtails. You'll have to tell me how you like them. Bye.